Elisa Tersigni, and I recently completed my PhD in English Literature and Book History and Print Culture at the University of Toronto, where I volunteered here in the bibliography room at Massey College. The bibliography room has a very large rare book collection, and one of the interesting parts of that collection is what we call the Paleography Collection, which is about 150 early modern manuscripts, so manuscripts between 1500 and 1750 approximately, signed wills and marriage contracts. So these are early modern indentures, a few of which I have here on the table. These are a sample of a few of our indentures from our Paleography collection. And what's interesting about indentures is because they are legal contracts, they are prepared to avoid forgeries. And so they have 4 major authentication devices, some of which you can see here in these samples. The first authentication device we see here is the seal. This seal is made up of a mix of beeswax, resin, and a pigment, cinnabar, which colors it red. And these seals were used to include the mark of the person who signed the contract as a way of authenticating that device. Cinnabar is a mineral which is mercury, so it is toxic, and so we avoid touching these seals. The second authentication device is the serrated edge at the top of each indenture. So when a contract was signed, 2 copies of the contract were produced, and those copies, the tops were overlaid and they were cut so that you could match both copies to each other as a form of authenticating that they indeed did match. The serrated edge could take different forms, but the important point was that each contract, the 2 halves of the contract matched each other. So what we have here are 4 different versions of the red seal. So we have the conventional version, which is the seal that is affixed to a hanging piece of paper or vellum that is attached at the bottom of the indenture. We also have less commonly seen seals. So on this indenture we have the seals affixed to the bottom, not on a hanging thread. And then these 2 are versions of the seal where the paper is actually partially cut and then flipped over with the seal in between the 2 pieces of paper. So you can still see the image, but it's the seal is between the 2 pieces of paper as they're folded here. And of course, one of the most commonly used authentication devices that is still in use today is the signature. So you can see signatures at the bottom of each of these indentures, just above or beside where the seal is located. The last authentication device, which we don't know if we can see here, is the use of sheepskin. So a recent study showed that legal documents tended to be produced on sheepskin because that skin was more likely to show when modifications had been made to it. So if a portion was scratched out and rewritten, it was easier to see on sheepskin than it was on other animal skins. There's no way to tell what type of skin a document is written on without DNA testing or protein analysis. And so we don't know for sure that these 2 copies of the indentures that we have here that are on animal skins are indeed sheepskin, but this one study did suggest that at least important legal documents tended to be written on sheepskin. And we also see that indentures, as we can see in these 3, are also produced on paper, so it's not necessarily exclusively on animal skin. A common feature we see across all our indentures is the large and decorated initial letter, which you can see varies significantly but is on each of these indentures. Another feature that you can see on some of our indentures are the pricking, which are the holes down the side of the indenture, and the ruling, which are the lines drawn across The pricking helps for the scribe to put the ruling in the right place, and the ruling is just there to make sure that the lines are straight. And so if you look really close, you'll be able to see that pricking and ruling. Although these indentures are common legal documents for marriages and property arrangements or land transfers, they are full of information about what regular life looked like in early modern England, and there's all sorts of information about material culture that we can gather from them as well. So for instance, the study on sheepskin looked at indentures that were seemingly unimportant, but told us a lot about what the material culture of early modern Europe was like. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in learning more about the early modern indentures, you can make an appointment with our librarian to come visit the Massey College's bibliography room and library, and you can come see these indentures for yourself.